reached the margins of the mainstream and discovered the ear-altering sounds made there using everything from sirens to silence, something began to irk. Why were so many innovative figures missing from my history books? It kept happening throughout undergraduate and postgraduate music studies in Canada and in the UK, as a newspaper critic in my 20s, now as a presenter for BBC Radio 3. Why did the official narrative, the concert programmes, the festival lineups always revolve so narrowly around the same clutch of core composers that I'd learned about in my kids' stories? Why were they so exclusively white and so male, so European and so American? Where were all the others? Because there were plenty of others. There are. Things have changed somewhat in the decades since I was a student. Even since that breakfast with George Lewis in 2018, mainstream conversations around race, gender, inclusion, and the arts have shifted to an extent. In the summer of 2020, the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent expansion of the Black Lives Matter movement forced the issue into the headlines. Questions were asked publicly and forcefully about how we tell our histories and who gets to tell them. Statues were pulled down, alternative road names nailed up. There was a backlash. The term culture wars reared its mucky head in the tabloids and in the mouths of government ministers intent on profiteering from division. Oxford University was accused of an attack of the woke after it announced plans to broaden its music curriculum to include more non-Western traditions. To be clear, Oxford was not planning to drop any core repertoire from its syllabus, merely to extend the scope a little, which it has done, as far as I know, jeopardising neither the well-being of students nor the future of classical music. Here is a myth I keep coming up against. It is an odd and spurious fear that the great works, the passions of Bach, the symphonies of Beethoven and Brahms, the earth-shaking ballets of Igor Stravinsky, are somehow threatened if classical music becomes more inclusive. Nobody is mooting that we should ditch Mozart or Mahler. Nobody is suggesting that their music doesn't speak for our times and for all time. I would be the first to fight back if anyone did. So I wonder what fuels this pernicious insecurity that composers who are already in the fold will be devalued if border controls around the genre are relaxed. Societal parallels aren't too hard to spot. It is the mentality of gatekeeping, of wall building, of door closing behind oneself. The irony is that the opposite is true. Stagnation will be the death of any living art form. Defensiveness is what suffocates. The longevity of the whole classical music ecosystem depends on embracing the boldest and broadest sounds as much as breathing new life into beloved old ones. The score of a Beethoven symphony is a blueprint for revolution, but performed in a vacuum, its message is mute. Healthy musical culture depends on who's playing, who's listening, who's genuinely impacted. The visionary director Graham Vick said that if opera has a place in the world, it must be of the world. He refused to watch the music he loved become the guarded privilege of an ever smaller section of British society, so he took opera out of its hallowed spaces and got citizens of Birmingham singing Verdi. This was no tokenism, disproving the false dichotomy between inclusion and excellence. Time and time again, Vick showed that opera can enrich every life, and in fact that the strength of the genre relies on it doing so. Compensating for a lack of diversity in classical music of past eras is a genuine stumper. We cannot readily make up for the opportunities denied to nearly everyone except white men of previous centuries, though we must make darn sure we shout about the courageous composers who did manage to write music in